The moment I slid my keycard into the cabin door and pushed it open, my stomach dropped like an anchor hitting the ocean floor. There, casually folding shirts into the drawer, stood a tall blonde man who looked up with a surprised but easy smile. "You must be the other guy," he said, extending a hand across the narrow space between the two twin beds. "Wyatt. Looks like the cruise line screwed up big time." I froze in the doorway of the compact balcony suite on the Sapphire Princess, the Miami skyline still visible through the window behind him. "My name is Landon, 32. A software engineer from Chicago who had booked this 7-day Caribbean cruise as my one shot at breathing without my parents' constant questions about why I was still single. Instead of solitude and sunsets alone, I was staring at Wyatt, 6'2", tanned from what looked like years outdoors, with calm blue eyes that made the tiny room feel even smaller. The purser had apologized profusely at the gangway when the system glitch showed up on his tablet. "We're completely sold out, Mr. Hayes. No other cabins available until we hit Nassau. We can offer you a full refund plus credit, but you'll have to share for now." I had nodded numbly, too stunned to argue, and now here we were. Wyatt shook my hand firmly. "No worries on my end. I travel light. You take the left bed." His voice carried that easy California lilt, relaxed like he did this every day. I managed a tight smile and dropped my suitcase, the wheels thudding against the carpet. "Yeah, sure. Landon. Sorry about this." We unpacked in awkward silence broken only by the distant hum of the engines and the announcement welcoming everyone aboard. I kept stealing glances at him while hanging my shirts. He moved with quiet confidence, stacking books on the nightstand, photography titles, travel memoirs. I wondered what he did for a living, why he was alone on a cruise. My own reasons felt too heavy to share yet. The family back home in suburban Chicago who still thought I was figuring things out. The quiet panic every time Mom asked when I'd bring a girl to Thanksgiving. By the time the ship pulled away from the port, the sun dipping low over the water, we had exchanged the basics. Wyatt was 30, a freelance photographer from Los Angeles, on the cruise to shoot stock images for a client and maybe clear his head after a big project. "Figured the ocean would be good for perspective," he said, leaning against the balcony rail as I joined him. The wind tugged at his light button-down. I nodded, gripping the metal, feeling the vibration of the engines through my palms. Perspective was exactly what I needed too, but mine came with layers I wasn't ready to peel back. Dinner in the main dining room was our first real test. We were seated at a table for two because the staff still felt guilty. Wyatt ordered the salmon without hesitation and asked me about Chicago winters. I laughed despite myself, describing the brutal snow that made me dream of escapes like this. He listened, really listened, head tilted, and something in his steady gaze made my chest tighten. Back in the cabin later, the space felt impossibly intimate. 2 beds, 1 bathroom, the sound of his breathing across the room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart racing for reasons I couldn't name yet. This was supposed to be my reset, not a test. Little did I know the real test was just beginning. The next morning the ship hummed with activity. I woke to the smell of coffee Wyatt had already grabbed from the buffet. "Figured you might need this," he said, handing me a cup with a grin. We stepped out onto the deck together, the Caribbean sun already warm. Passengers milled around, snapping photos of the endless blue. Wyatt lifted his camera, framing the horizon. "Mind if I take a few of the ship?" I shrugged, watching him work. His focus was magnetic. Over breakfast we talked more, his last assignment in Patagonia, my latest code project that had me burned out. He didn't push when I dodged questions about relationships. By afternoon we had settled into an uneasy rhythm, sharing the cabin without collision. Yet every time our eyes met across the small table or our shoulders brushed in the narrow doorway, a quiet spark flickered in my gut. I pushed it down hard. I had spent years building walls for a reason. My parents' church group back home still sent me pamphlets about choosing the right path. This stranger didn't need to know any of that. As the sun set on day 1, painting the ocean gold, I stood on the balcony alone for a moment while Wyatt showered. The water rushed below, and for the first time in years I wondered if running away had finally brought me exactly where I was meant to be. Little did I realize the days ahead would force every buried truth to the surface. The second day at sea stretched out like the horizon itself, endless and full of possibility I wasn't sure I wanted. Wyatt suggested we hit the pool deck after breakfast, and I agreed before I could overthink it. The sun beat down on the polished wood as we claimed lounge chairs side by side. He stripped off his shirt without hesitation, revealing the kind of easy athletic build that came from hiking trails, not gym mirrors. I kept my t-shirt on longer than necessary, suddenly aware of every scar and imperfection. "You're gonna burn if you don't relax," he said lightly, tossing me sunscreen. His tone held no judgment, just that same calm openness that made me want to both run and stay. We talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, worst travel disasters, the way the ocean made problems feel small. He mentioned a boyfriend back in LA once, casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "We split amicably," he added, eyes on the water. "Mutual growth." My stomach twisted. I nodded like it didn't rattle me, mumbling something about being too focused on work for relationships. The lie tasted bitter. Lunch in the buffet line brought our first small collision. Wyatt reached for the same tongs I did, our fingers brushing. He laughed it off, but I felt the contact like a live wire. Later we wandered the promenade deck, the ship slicing through turquoise waves. He pointed out seabirds, told stories of photographing storms in the Pacific. I shared more than I planned. How my little sister was the only one who suspected I wasn't straight. How Dad's Sunday sermons still echoed in my head even at 32. Wyatt listened without pity, just nodded. That's heavy to carry alone. His words hung between us, simple but piercing. By evening we had fallen into a routine. Dinner, then drinks at the piano bar where the music softened the edges of everything. He ordered whiskey neat. I stuck to beer. We people watched, inventing backstories for other passengers. A couple at the next table argued quietly. Wyatt leaned in. "Bet they're fighting about whose turn it is to call the kids." I laughed, the sound surprising me. For the first time, the cabin didn't feel like a cage when we returned. We read in companionable silence, the only sound pages turning and the distant swell of the sea. Yet sleep didn't come easy. I lay there replaying his casual mention of the ex, the way his voice carried no shame. My own chest ached with the weight of secrets. Back home my parents still introduced me as their eligible bachelor, hoping I'd settle down with some nice girl from church. I had dated women in college to keep the peace, but the emptiness afterward had driven me to this cruise in the first place. Wyatt's breathing across the room was steady, reassuring. Part of me envied his freedom. Another part feared what would happen if I let myself want the same. The next morning we docked at Nassau, the first port. Wyatt suggested we explore together. Solo is fine, but company's better. I agreed, and we stepped off the gangway into the bright Bahamian sun. The market bustled with color and noise. He bought a straw hat and plopped it on my head, grinning. "Looks good on you." The simple gesture sent warmth through me I couldn't ignore. We walked the beach, shoes in hand, waves licking our ankles. He talked about growing up in a big family that accepted him completely. Took me a while to accept myself first, though. His honesty cracked something open in me. I told him about the night I almost came out to my parents at 25 and chickened out when Dad quoted scripture. Wyatt stopped walking, facing me. That took guts just to get close. His eyes held mine, steady and kind. The air between us shifted, charged with something new. I looked away first, heart hammering. Friendship was safe. Anything more terrified me. As the ship sailed away that evening, the lights of Nassau fading, I realized the real journey wasn't the islands ahead. It was the man sharing my cabin and the walls he was quietly dismantling inside me. Nassau faded behind us, but the conversation on the beach lingered like salt on my skin. The third day brought calmer seas and a scheduled snorkel excursion at a private island. Wyatt signed us both up before I could protest. "Come on, You can't cruise without getting in the water. I found myself on the tender boat beside him, life vest snug, trying not to notice how the sun caught the gold in his hair. The reef exploded with color below us. Parrotfish, sea fans swaying in the current. Wyatt dove first, camera in its waterproof housing, capturing everything. I followed, the cool water shocking away the heat in my chest. We surfaced together, laughing when a curious barracuda cruised past. On the beach afterward, towels spread, we shared cold drinks and stories. He asked about my last relationship. I hesitated, then admitted it had been with a woman named Claire, 2 years ago, mostly to prove to myself I could fit the mold my family wanted. It ended because I couldn't give her what she deserved, I said quietly. Wyatt nodded, no surprise in his expression. Sounds like you were trying to be someone else. The words landed soft but true. I changed the subject to his photography, but the seed was planted. Back on the ship that afternoon, the mood shifted. A sudden rain shower sent everyone indoors. We ended up in the library lounge with books and coffee. Wyatt pulled out a worn journal. I sketch ideas here, he explained, showing me quick drawings of waves and faces. One page held a half-finished portrait that looked suspiciously like me from the deck yesterday. He closed it quickly, cheeks tinting. Just practicing. The small gesture made my pulse jump. Dinner brought the first real misunderstanding. A group of guys from the singles table invited us for drinks. One, a loud salesman named Mike, clapped Wyatt on the back. You two together or what? Wyatt answered smoothly, just roommates, thanks to the cruise line. I laughed along, but inside the word roommates, stung in a way I didn't expect. Later in the cabin I snapped a little. You don't have to explain us to strangers. Wyatt looked up from his camera, surprised. I wasn't hiding anything, just keeping it simple. The air thickened. I apologized, mumbling about being tired, but the tension stayed. That night the ship hit a patch of rougher water. The bed rocked gently. I heard Wyatt shift. You okay over there? His voice cut through the dark. I admitted the motion was making me anxious. He talked me through it, calm stories about sailing through worse in the Pacific. His voice wrapped around me like a lifeline. By morning, the misunderstanding had dissolved into something warmer. Quiet understanding. We spent the day at sea exploring the spa, laughing through a couple's massage mix-up the attendant insisted on because of our shared cabin number. Not a couple, I corrected quickly, but Wyatt just winked. The afternoon stretched into deep conversation on the top deck. I told him about the family vacation when I was 15 and Dad caught me looking too long at the lifeguard. The lecture that followed still echoed. Wyatt shared his own turning point at 20, coming out at Thanksgiving with his mom hugging him before he finished the sentence. Different families, different roads, he said. The ocean wind carried his words away, but they settled deep in my chest. That evening during the captain's dinner, we sat across from an older couple celebrating 50 years. They asked how long we'd been together. I froze. Wyatt covered smoothly. We're just friends on the same cruise. But his foot brushed mine under the table, accidental or not, and electricity shot up my leg. Back in the cabin, the space felt smaller than ever. I brushed my teeth while he changed, the mirror reflecting glimpses I tried not to study. When I finally lay down, the question hung unspoken between us. How much longer could I pretend this was just a booking error? The ship sailed on, carrying me closer to answers I had spent a lifetime avoiding. Mid-cruise brought the formal night, and with it a storm that mirrored the one building inside me. The captain warned of heavy seas after sunset, but the ballroom still glittered with gowns and tuxedos. Wyatt rented a jacket that fit him perfectly, looking like he belonged on a movie set. I wore my only suit, feeling exposed. We danced, platonic at first, laughing at our clumsy steps, until the music slowed. His hand settled lightly on my waist, guiding me. Relax, he murmured. The contact burned through fabric. I pulled away after one song, mumbling about needing air. On the deserted promenade deck, the wind whipped rain sideways. Wyatt followed me out anyway, jacket collar up. Talk to me, Landon. The words tumbled out then. The years of silence at family dinners, the fake dates to keep Mom from worrying, the quiet nights wondering if I would ever stop lying. He listened, rain streaking his face. When I finished, he simply said, "You're allowed to want more than survival." His hand found mine on the railing, warm and steady. I didn't pull away. Back inside the cabin, the power flickered with the storm. We sat on the floor between the beds, sharing the last bottle of wine from the gift shop. Wyatt told me about the boyfriend who left because he wanted Wyatt to be less open. "I won't shrink for anyone anymore," he said. The honesty cracked the last wall. I admitted I had never kissed a man, never let myself get close enough. The confession hung heavy. Wyatt's eyes softened. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." But the air crackled. When the lights steadied, he reached over and brushed a raindrop from my cheek. The touch lingered. I leaned in without thinking, our foreheads resting together. No kiss, just breathing the same air, hearts pounding in rhythm with the waves. Felt like the truest moment of my life. Morning brought calm seas and awkward silence. I avoided his eyes while dressing, terrified I had ruined everything. Wyatt acted normal, suggesting breakfast on the balcony. Over coffee, he said quietly, "Last night didn't change anything unless you want it to." Relief and fear crashed together. The rest of the day we explored the ship's art gallery, pointing out paintings that reminded us of each other. Every shared laugh mended the crack. Yet my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Hope you're meeting nice people. Dad says hi." The guilt slammed back. That night Wyatt found me on the balcony staring at the stars. "Family stuff." I nodded. He didn't push, just stood beside me until the weight felt lighter. For the first time, I imagined a future where I didn't have to choose between truth and love. The thought both thrilled and terrified me. The cruise was halfway over, but my real journey had only just begun. The crisis hit like the storm we had weathered, sudden and impossible to ignore. Day 5 brought a family video call I couldn't dodge. Mom and Dad appeared on my phone screen while Wyatt politely stepped onto the balcony. "You sound different," Mom said immediately. "Met someone special?" The question was innocent on the surface, but I knew the subtext. Dad chimed in about the church picnic and how many nice girls would be there when I returned. I mumbled something non-committal and ended the call fast. Wyatt came back in, reading my face instantly. "Want to talk about it?" The dam broke. I paced the small cabin, spilling every fear. Losing my family, the sermons, the years of pretending. Wyatt listened, then shared his own story of a cousin who chose silence and lost himself. "You're not them," he said firmly. "You get to choose your life." His words should have helped, but panic rose instead. I snapped, "You don't get it. Your family accepted you. Mine would rather pretend I don't exist." The hurt flashed across his face before he masked it. "Maybe I don't get every piece, but I'm here." I stormed out to the deck, chest heaving. Hours passed before I returned. Wyatt was reading, but the tension filled the room. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "This isn't your fault." He set the book down. "I know you're scared, but pushing me away won't make the fear smaller." We talked late into the night, voices low. He admitted he had started developing feelings, real ones, and didn't want to pressure me. The confession both warmed and broke me. I told him about the almost kiss during the storm and how it had shaken everything I thought I knew. We fell asleep facing each other across the narrow gap between beds, hands almost touching. The next morning brought another port St. Thomas, and I suggested we go separately. Wyatt agreed without argument, but the distance hurt more than the argument. Alone on the beach, I stared at the waves, replaying every moment. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time, asking when I'd settled down. I turned it off. By evening, I found Wyatt at the piano bar, nursing a drink. I sat beside him. "I don't want to lose this," I said simply. He turned, eyes searching mine. "Then don't run." We walked back to the cabin in silence, but the air felt different, charged with possibility and fear. That night, the ship's farewell party raged on deck above us. We stayed in, talking about what came after the cruise. Wyatt's flight back to LA, my return to Chicago. The conversation circled the real question. Could I step into the truth waiting for me? The argument had stripped away pretense. Now only choice remained, and the consequences felt enormous. The final night at sea wrapped the ship in golden light as the sun dipped low. I found Wyatt on our balcony, camera in hand, capturing the horizon one last time. "Hey!" I said softly. He turned, smile tentative. The week had changed everything. The forced proximity, the late talks, the storm that mirrored my heart. I stepped closer. "I've been thinking about what you said. About choosing." He set the camera down. The ocean stretched endless behind him. "You don't owe me anything, Landon. But I care what happens to you." The words unlocked the last door. I told him I was done hiding. Not for him, but for me. The decision felt terrifying and right all at once. We stood there as the sky turned pink, shoulders touching, and for the first time I let myself imagine a future without the weight of secrets. Dinner was quiet but full of meaning. We laughed about the double-booking glitch that had started it all. Back in the cabin we packed slowly, neither wanting the week to end. Wyatt zipped his bag and looked at me. "Chicago isn't that far from LA. Flights go both ways." The simple offer carried hope. I nodded, heart full. On the top deck for the final sail-away party we stood at the rail together. Fireworks lit the sky as the ship approached Miami. Wyatt's hand found mine in the crowd, hidden but real. The touch said everything words couldn't. Disembarking the next morning felt bittersweet. We exchanged numbers, promised coffee in Chicago or LA soon. At the airport curb, Wyatt pulled me into a quick hug. "You've got this," he whispered. I watched him walk away, suitcase rolling, and felt the shift inside me. Lighter, truer. The cruise line's mistake had forced me into a room with a stranger and out of the cage I had built for years. Family would be hard. Conversations waited back home. But for the first time, I wasn't facing them alone. Weeks later, a text from Wyatt arrived with a photo of the two of us on the balcony that last night. "Ready when you are," it read. I smiled at the screen, typing back that I was already booking my ticket. Life had turned upside down in the best possible way. The man I had been forced to share a cabin with had helped me find the courage to share my truth. And that truth was finally completely mine. True or false. Sometimes the most unexpected roommate is exactly what you need to stop living a lie.